So, everybody, welcome to Beaver Politics. Here we talk about Canadian politics and social issues. My show is called Breaking the Dam, and the focus is all on mental health. And today we are talking to Dr. Angela Grace about basically the tough times that a lot of us are having. We have a lot of political strife, crisis going on with our connection to the United States and everything going on there, as well as our own politics. So it's
Well,
just
your title is didn't go unnoticed, Beaver Dam.
I know, isn't it? I thought it was very clever. I was trying to come up with names, and this one struck me. I'm like breaking the dam and beavers. It's a great double entendre, so to speak. Thank you. So today we're going to be talking to Dr. Angela Grace. Did you want some time to just kind of talk to everybody first about what it's like to be going through this? And I can put you. I think I can make you a little bigger. Let me see if I can do that. If I
I can
remember,
just,
you can just go ahead. Okay, you go ahead.
yeah, I can just give a little
And then we'll
introduction.
have everybody introduce themselves. Okay.
Um, so I'm Dr. Angela Grace. I grew up in rural Alberta. Initially, I was a teacher, and I taught grade one. And then one year, something was off with my little grade one girls, and I caught one of them throwing out her lunch. And I'm like, "What are you doing, honey?" And she said, "Oh, we started a diet club to be like our moms." Um, and I was just like astounded, and there was nothing in my background that taught me how to deal with little girls with body image and eating issues. So I decided to get my master's in counseling and become a school counselor. And then I decided to get my PhD and work on youth education, youth health and wellness. I became a psychologist, and I just get deeper and deeper into the world of psychology and spiritual centered healing. The root of the word psychology is the psyche, which is the soul. And so much of psychology has been run by CBT and by, male approaches. And there's just so much more that we can do for women and children and families and moving into a more feminine side. So that's what I work on. I also worked on the 2018 draft of the curriculum, the Alberta curriculum, from a wellness perspective, and was talking to the curriculum creators about how wellness needs to be the foundation of everything that we do.
Yeah.
So I was asked to come back and review all the areas of the curriculum from a wellness perspective. And then Jason Kenney was elected, and the curriculum got thrown out, and I started to advocate for education and curriculum and led provincial protests and rallies and wrote op-eds. And then I got more involved with advocating for Albertans and mental health and well-being. And, since 2019, it just hasn't stopped, and it just keeps ramping up. And it's astounding the place we're in. So the fact that we're talking about mental health in the political realm
Yes.
is so important right now, because none of this is going to be resolved by, a hot bath and a cup of tea. Right?
Yeah.
All our talk of self-care is important, but holy cow, we are in the realm of community, political, global well-being.
Yep.
And there's, when you first invited me here, I was like, okay, well, what can I talk about? And I haven't stopped thinking about it. So this might be like a 48-hour program. I'm not sure where we're going to go. Okay. But there's so much that we're dealing with now. And then let's nest it all in a global pandemic that is still going on that nobody wants to talk about. But I'm very invested in long COVID and long COVID kids advocacy and treatment, and recognizing the brain changes and the mental health changes from what we've all dealt with in the past few years and will continue to deal with. Exactly. So that kind of centers me where I'm at right now for this. And hopefully I can bring in some things that'll be helpful, make people think, and maybe think about some things that we don't want to think about.
Maybe that's what
But
some of these fucking convoyers have.
I'm sure. You never know.
Fear. Fear is what people use to manipulate people. And when you are not mentally healthy, what people say to you, you don't know how to take it. And instead of finding a way to find out what, how that's affecting you, we push that narrative onto other people instead. And that's part of the cult mentality, I think.
Yeah. And I think it's really important that we have these conversations about mental health, because first of all, mental health is always something we should be having conversations about. But anybody that, I think that the amount of political uncertainty right now with everything going on, like we have Trump in the States just throwing things at people so fast, and it affects us seeing it, and it affects us with him wanting us to become the 51st state and not letting up on that. It's very scary for a lot of people, and it's very confusing too, because he throws so much out there that you can't even keep up with it. You can't. It's a new thing every 10 minutes. He seems to be going live every 15, and then he's tweeting in the middle of the night weird threats and and stuff, and it's a lot to absorb. I feel for the Americans that didn't vote for this, because, this has got to be affecting them greatly if it's affecting us as much as it is.
But look how people have banded together with this global Commonwealth world TikTok movement. That goes to show how Canadians don't want to fight what he's given us. We want to love you back.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good solution.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with just a quick thing. I'm going to give everybody on the panel, I'm leaving one spot on the panel clear right now, because I want to be able to bring people up that may just want to say something or have a question for Dr. Angela for a couple of minutes, right? So that
You're welcome to push me out to.
Oh, thank you. I don't, not right now, but if we need to.
Okay.
I just want to be able to give everybody.
Anytime, no problem.
Yeah. Right now, let's just go down the panel and just a quick introduction, who you are, and maybe just one thing that you're grateful for, because gratitude can be really helpful in times like this. Does that sound good? We'll start with healing through meditation, because you're on the top there. Oh, you just got unmute. There you go.
Yeah. Hi there. My background, as I was saying earlier, I have family members and friends who deal with mental health issues. I'm in Edmonton, Alberta,
Mhm.
and I also years ago started working with youth with mental health issues. As a youth, when I was a teenager, I felt the adults weren't listening to me. They
Mhm.
didn't care what I had to say, and what I felt didn't matter. So when I became that adult, I wanted to be that sounding board for youth. So I started working with youth with different disabilities and mental health with issues. Today, I'm working with different youths as well. Right now, specifically with Aboriginal youth. I've been with them for 4 years. Unfortunately, they'll be aging out soon, so they'll be moving forward somewhere else. And then I'll have an opportunity to work with others. But mental health is a really big issue that I've been dealing with for many years, and trying to understand how to better help people with mental health issues. So education is important. Knowledge is power. And one thing that I'm very grateful for is, with what's going on in the world right now, I'm grateful that I have an opportunity to work with people that are the underdogs that nobody listens to. And so if anybody here needs a sounding board, please reach out. I'm more than happy to listen. I'm very good at listening as well. So that's me. Thanks for taking the time to listen.
No problem. And while I do this, I'm just going to do a plug. Make sure to share this live, please, and tap, tap, tap. Tapping is clapping. And please do gift our panelists. They are putting in a lot of emotional work, and it would be nice to see them getting some gifts whenever you can. Greatly appreciated. And we're going to move on to hope for positivity. I'm just going to call
Hope for positive mindset.
Hope for positive mindset. Awesome.
So part of my my previous comment about radical acceptance, it's really difficult for me. I grew up in the foster care system. My first and only childhood, not my only, but my earliest childhood memory was my dad's hands around my mother's neck. And I didn't realize at that point I grew into a survivor, a little adult survivor. And what I found was when I went into crisis, there was not the right type of therapy for me.
Yeah.
And I believe, based on the research and I'm not, oh, by the way, I'm not a doctor of anything. I'm just a doctor of my opinion, okay? But what I did find is attachment style is related to a lot of what we see today in mental illness. When you don't form a healthy attachment as a child, you don't grow up with the right ability to form healthy attachments or relationships. So what I've noticed so far for me is that it's allowed me to start to open my mind to other people's subjective opinions. And when you mentioned, Dr. Angela, you mentioned info is knowledge. I try to educate along my way that when I hear somebody say crazy behind me, I turn around and I say, there's a difference between being crazy and being mentally ill. And it's up to you to start thinking about the difference between the two. And I stand today and say, I'm not crazy, but I am different and my opinions are educated.
Awesome.
So hopefully I'm here to talk to anybody that struggles with severe loneliness and combating the daily ideation of unaliving oneself, okay? That is a struggle I deal with every day, and I cannot find people that are not toxic or like I get sucked into that negativity. And so just even in my name, Hope for Positive Mindset, I'm trying to, even if in my brain, I'm saying, okay, I don't believe this, but I'm going to do it every day. I'm putting myself out there every day to change my belief system, to be in the present today. Because what I grew up in was really a fantasy that most people don't know what that life was like.
Yeah.
So thank you for allowing me to share my side of my education.
Absolutely. And what is one thing that you're grateful for today? If you can
I am
think.
grateful. My new best friend is ChatGPT. Believe it or not, I am becoming the voice. I've written some letters now, and I'm actually making sure that they go direct to all of the members of Parliament. And I fell into a list of about 500 media email addresses. So I want to be a rebel with a cause, and technology is helping me change that mindset. So I am grateful. I would love to say I'm alive today, and I'm grateful for that too.
Awesome. And Frontline, are you able to talk? I know you're working on something else, but did you want to
I'm here.
go ahead, do an introduction and just what you're grateful for?
I mean, most of you guys already know me. I don't even know where to start really when it comes to an introduction.
Yeah.
I guess I'll introduce myself of who I am on TikTok. I try to cover the biggest stories, bring the news to the people, educate people on what's going on politically. I'm very involved in community. I'm a big activist. Actually, I'm going to head down into the city today for a small little protest to get to know some organizers, and hopefully talk to them about doing another protest next week. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. But other than that, that's who I am on TikTok. When it comes to mental health, my views on mental health are a little bit, I guess, more radical. I'm not the biggest fan of the traditional ways that we've been dealing with mental health. You know, like you guys were talking about earlier, you go to the doctor and their first line of defense is, here, take a pill. So I'm not really all about that. I'm more so about mindfulness, meditation, doing yoga. I'm just going to say it, it might be controversial, but I've studied the realm of psychedelic healing for the last 10 years, and I know that there's huge advances with that. So I'm waiting to see more studies come out and more ways that we can actually implement it. I know that we have implemented some of these ways, and they're having really big successes. Also alternative ways like neurofeedback. It's very expensive. I wish it was part of our healthcare, but it seems to have much better results than traditional forms in many ways. So that's what I'm all about. And then when it comes to what I'm grateful for, I am grateful that we are in Canada and we still have a chance to not end up like our brothers and sisters in the United States.
Absolutely. Yeah, me too. That's a big one.
Yeah,
For that time. Thank you so much, Frontline. And
thanks.
Beaver, did you want to do a little introduction and tell us what you're grateful for today?
Dante, good morning, everybody.
That's it.
I'm Treaty 6 birder, and I identify as a land defender and water protector. So mental health is, because I'm a biologist, and I really think a lot about land and environment, and I never really thought a lot about mental health until reconciliation really opened my eyes to generational trauma.
Yeah.
Explains a lot about some of the things I've struggled with, such as addictions and, just the various things throughout life. But I'm glad that Dr. Angela brought up too about COVID, because something that started happening to me during that time was thinking about our ancestors who had to go through smallpox the first time, and how that kind of really shook me up and started making me feel like, are we, how we talk about every 100 years, we kind of repeat the same things. And are we going through this again? And what's, and I didn't really articulate it that way, but in hindsight now that we have this threat of further colonization and this desire to access the resources that we have in Canada coming from our friends to the south and potentially the north, Putin, it triggers in me again anxiety that I never experienced before in my life. Like, I find myself in the middle of the day all of a sudden getting this frightened feeling. And then it makes me immediately think about our ancestors and what they went through. And I remind myself they endured so much so we could be here today, that, and I was so hopeful that we were going forward and things were going to be different. And, under this government in the last 9 years, we've really made some leaps and bounds, and it's all at risk. And this causes me great anxiety and cause for concern and fear for our next generations and all of us now, because they're not just colonizing Indigenous people any longer. They're colonizing all of us to access resources and land. And so we're in this together. But yeah, I've really learned a lot about mental health in the last 5 years or so, but definitely since the pandemic, something I was always aware of, and I'm grateful for all of you, because here we have found community and each other. My husband and I, Perry, we live in rural Alberta, where we're surrounded by people who are definitely not like-minded, people who still call me a squaw, people who rev their tires at the end of our driveway when I put up an Every Child Matters flag, people who give us the finger and yell F you as they drive past our property. And, it's hard. So him and I come to this place a lot to find our friends. So I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Awesome. And us,
Your visitors sound like Poly F supporters.
Oh, they definitely are.
yeah,
Yes.
I'm in Alberta, so I know that feeling. And of the PP supporters and the F Trudeau Brigade, or Brogade is what I call them.
This may sound pathetic, but I never voted in Alberta because I would rather vote Liberal, okay, given the choices. And one vote in a how many people vote Conservative in Alberta?
Yeah, it's still a little empowering to actually do it, though. Like, I've never missed an election. I have municipally, but federally and provincially, since I've been 18, I've voted in every election. And I find that at least I feel like my voice is there, and at least it adds to the numbers for the total votes, popular vote, I guess. But I understand what you're saying. Like, it's
Well, we
very
vote for
unlikely
an
that my vote is
MP,
going to do
so
much in Alberta. Yeah.
if your vote goes
And no
to a
vote,
different,
no
how does
vote
it
is ever
work?
wasted, and it's a place. It really is the only place to have a voice. Like that's what a democracy is meant to be. We do need to express ourselves in different voices now, for sure. But
More
at the
important than ever.
end, our vote is our voice, and no vote is ever wasted.
Yeah.
Can I add real quick?
Go ahead, Frontline.
I was going to say, I just want to remind you guys that in BC, we literally got by with an NDP government by 20 votes. It was 20 people that made the difference. So never think that your vote doesn't count, because you never know.
Yeah,
And it's
polls are not a
super
factor.
important.
Yeah.
And people like I'm not a political strategist or anything. These are just my thoughts, but people really do, like, we've just become so apathetic and so uneducated. It's embarrassing, and I'm I've had to grow up politically the last few years too, and recognize we really cannot go by what our grandparents told our parents to vote for and what our dad wants us to vote for. Like, you really have to have your own mind and vote for your values. And if honestly, if you have any humanitarian thoughts now and ever, then we have to vote differently and vote in a different government other than conservative. But I don't want to, I want to stay on mental health right now. That could be a whole other mental health topic.
Well, I think
health,
green
so-
is a good color, more than just a party, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. And Smarshy, did you want to do a quick introduction and tell us what you're grateful for today?
I'm smart. Hi everybody, how's it going?
I'm
I
good.
totally forgot it was
Welcome.
Saturday. I still thought it was Friday, not gonna lie. Um, Here's the thing. I was watching the Lorax this morning and it hit me. Treaty Bird will understand this more than any one of you will understand this. The part where they show the painting of the trees on the side of the house that the young lady did, that is what it feels like to me as an Indigenous person watching Jasper just collapse.
Yeah.
Watching all the trees just been cutting down and not replenishing the earth like we're supposed to. We're looking at a mural of what we had,
Mm-hmm.
not what we need, right? So if you take it into the mindset of a person who's never seen it that way, look at it. I implore you guys to take a look at the Lorax, sit down, and really take it apart bit by bit, because they're talking about globalizing the air. They're talking about taking the air and selling it, right? We don't own land. We don't own water. We don't own the animals. We don't own anything, right? Because you can't own something that was already there. And that's the thing. And just one thought, like, was like, oh my God, this is what Indigenous people and our ancestors have been saying for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
That one day it's just going to be a mural on a wall where the trees and the animals and the water are going to be on one part, and we're going to have nothing but no trees. We're going to have electric trees, and that's what scares me. I
Yeah.
am just grateful that I have my friends and family who are my friends and family I choose to be with, and my Indigenous relatives, and that I'm here today because my ancestors could not be.
Yeah.
That's what I'm grateful for. So thank you.
Thank
But
you.
seriously, check that movie out. It everything I'm saying right now will make sense once you see it.
Yeah.
Is
if
this
you
This
haven't
that
is
heard of it.
cartoon movie?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, it's
I
called The
think of blue
Lorax.
and
It's
white
by
when I
Dr.
think of it.
It's Dr. Seuss. Yeah.
Dr. Seuss. Yeah.
Based on a Dr. Seuss book. And it's a great movie. I saw it years ago and it was very impactful.
And also Avatar.
Mm.
Right?
Oh,
If you want to
Exactly.
talk about an analogy, well, not an analogy, but a direct correlation to the damage of colonialism taking over indigenous lands. There's Avatar.
Right.
the rainforest
Exactly.
is still under attack today.
If you look at the movie, oh God, what's that movie? Ferngully, the Lost Ferngully, or
That's
Ferngully,
my
the Lost
community.
Adventure.
Mm-hmm.
You look at that movie, that is also cutting down the trees, and they're, we're not monoliths. We're not mascots. We're not, political pawns. We're not what the government thinks we are. We are
Mm-hmm.
human beings that are trying to heal the earth because unfortunately, like many people believe, oh, it's not real. Oh, but baby, it is real. And it is one day you are not going to have any air to breathe. It's going to be that bad.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to stop that. We want to be able to continue breathing the air that the trees have. We want to continue doing this. And so many people are like, no, it's not real. You're just full of crap. Like, but every time someone tells me they can't breathe the air that they're breathing in, I'm like, and you'll wonder why you can't breathe in the air you're breathing in.
Yeah, exactly. And
As Canadians, we are fortunate because our boreal forest offsets our carbon footprint in a lot of ways. The reality is, most of the northern people rely on natural gas to live. You cannot live without it. And
yeah.
Canada and countries that live in the north should not be treated like places like Taiwan and China and those manufacturing countries that only care about making a certain few rich. And we still bring in ships of this garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
We need
that,
to we need to take our education back to school and teach children how to recycle and the importance of protecting the footprint, Smarshy, your ancestors had in this land, and we don't respect Mother Earth. And I for one, as technically and toxic a person I am in today's society, we have to go back to the basics before technology.
but again, that is what I'm hoping for. That is what I want to have happen. But unfortunately, it's a pipe dream right now.
We're doing our
Yeah,
part.
because
Like I think I'm gonna
because
go. Go ahead.
we're I was just gonna say we're forgetting our culture.
Yes.
The people who built, I don't want to talk about colonialism. I'm talking about the people who did immigrate here for a better future.
Mm-hmm.
And there was blood, sweat, and tears in all the forethinking. And now it's just being crushed with garbage.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think I
but
think about that too. And the way, and I'm going to say collectively we, um, but the way we are living now, this is not the dream our grandparents and great grandparents had for us. Yes,
no.
they wanted to build a better life for us, but if we really think about it, it did not mean all of this leisure, all of this technology, all of this laziness, all of this entitlement.
Yes.
Like I think about my grandparents. They were fortunate to have 2 trips to Hawaii their entire adult life. And that was, I remember my grandma being so excited about that. And the little treasures she brought back and got to share. And that doesn't translate into I'm entitled to a trip to Hawaii or Mexico or around the world just because I need a little break, right? Like it's become this excess that has taken us away from the roots of what health, well-being, community, and
Mm-hmm.
living is about.
Very
And I think that's part of the problem with health, well-being, mental health. It's not just about the individual, it's about the collective. And we've gotten so far away from what it's really all about. And it's about we are part of nature and we are meant to be connected with nature. And yet someone wrote in the comments, which is exactly what's happened. They've paved paradise and put up a parking lot.
Yeah.
And we don't have the connection to the land. Treaty Six Birder, I I'm so glad I found you on here right away when I started on TikTok because I love all your videos about connecting to the land. And I'm planning on getting back out to the land and we're looking at finding property where we can be on the land instead of in the city. And we've lost the plot. We've
No.
lost connections
Can I
to
make it
the,
a radical statement?
yeah.
I think globalist capitalism has allowed people to have credit up our yin yang
Sorry,
to
definitely.
do this kind of crap. If
Yes,
we
but
didn't have the credit, we would work hard for our money, wouldn't we?
okay, but here I want to touch back on what you said. And this is no fault of your own. This is the fault of everyone on in this panel and in this world. Okay?
Mhm.
Yes, we don't want to talk about colonization and we want to talk about building the strength of our country, but the strength of our country was unfortunately brought to us by colonization. So if we
Right.
talk about it collectively, we have to talk about all of the uncomfortable parts because
Yes.
people who are non-indigenous have to sit in the uncomfortability of their whiteness because of that reason.
Yeah.
You have to look at all the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'm not here to attack you. Hope I don't know you from Adam and Eve. I don't know you from a hole in the ground. I talk to you on here, but I'm coming to you in good faith because my ancestors want me to be. I've had just a really long weekend,
Mhm.
a
Miss
week,
Marshy,
whatever.
can I ask you,
Yep.
if we were to disconnect our attaches to the monarchy and we start respecting our country and it's in
Yes.
our indigenous
And
people without being controlled by the monarchy. A lot of people don't realize the Canadian government does not have a lot of say. It's the monarchy
uh,
controlling, and
no,
I
no,
don't know,
no.
educate me.
Okay, so if Berner wants to chime in at any time she can. But here's the thing: if we're not controlled by the monarchy, then who is in control of the international treaties? Then the treaties go away because the
Ah.
international treaties were made by the monarchy themselves. It was
Right.
made by kings and of France and in New England, New France and England and Britain and all this. These were made under monarchy rule. That's why the treaties are international law. They are that of international law. So you can't say that we can get rid of the monarchy because if we get rid of the monarchy, what are those treaties going to do for us? They're not going to
Well,
keep us
why
protected.
can't we just make assimilation to Quebec?
Okay, but the thing is, we can't though because those treaties will no longer protect the indigenous people, will no longer protect the land, will no longer be able to protect the minerals that we are trying to keep from other people coming in and taking them. That's
Yeah.
why we have the
So
treaties.
are you saying our own government can't protect those treaties?
No, because
So,
the government
so
is so.
can, so I'm saying, okay, Quebec has rights under our charter. Okay, I hate that it's that way. To me, that is elitism, and it's protecting a different kind of race. Okay, why can't Indigenous have a nation like? I
Okay,
mean,
we are a nation.
yes,
Okay.
but
We are.
nobody stands up for it. Okay,
Guys, I don't
we
want to
don't
Oh,
interrupt
teach
I
you
stand
white
up
for
people
for
just a
it.
this,
second,
but oh,
guys.
there's a
If everyone
few
can
of
stop
us. We need
talking, please
more.
Oh,
go
I'm
to
an
the topic.
indigenous person. I stand up for my nation. I stand up for all indigenous people. But to take away the monarchy is to leave the indigenous people of this country vulnerable and without help. So, by very definition, you want to save Canada and take the treaties away,
Sorry, I don't
but
know if everyone.
you want to keep Canada safe. You want to keep us protected, but you at the same time are asking if we can take away the monarchy. The monarchy is what keeps us
It's a
control.
protection.
So
It protects us.
Hmm.
can I chime in?
Yeah, I'm just going
Go
to
ahead, Bertie.
one thing. Go ahead, Treaty Bird, because I do want to hear from you. But after
Yeah.
that, I want to get back to mental health, if
Yeah,
that's
that's exactly what I was going to say. Let's park this conversation and come back on Monday night and we'll talk about that.
exactly. We
But
have a
just
long
Yeah.
time.
For one clarity, though, like the Commonwealth, it is important that we stay in a Commonwealth to keep those treaties alive, but we can explore that deeper. And I'm trying to get us a guest on Monday to talk about treaties and treaty relationships. So let's park this conversation and we'll talk about it in depth on Monday at Indigenous Matters.
I
That sounds
love you, Trudy Bird.
Thank you. Me too, you.
Be
awesome.
good.
So I'm just going to get us back on track, and I'm going to do a quick summary of who I am and my grateful for today, and then we'll talk to Dr. Angela, get some questions. So I started TikTok in December. Actually, I've only been on a few months, and it was because of PP's comment about warriors not woke that really struck me, because I don't understand why you can't be both. Like, why does one replace the other? Like, he's basically saying that people who have or are woke in his term of the word are not warriors, and that's just not true. Having compassion, having empathy, having awareness for social justice issues does not make you any less a warrior. In fact, there are a lot of warriors that are social justice warriors. There's a lot of ways to fight. So that was my first TikTok with my face on it. And after that, I heard PP reference John A. Macdonald, which really, I've done some Indigenous study courses during my university. And I was just like, whoa, wait a minute. And I went and looked him up, and I was like, yeah, my memory was right. This is not a good guy. And did my post on that, which is doing really well. And I'm really happy about that, because people need to know who we're talking about when we want to honor John A. Macdonald, because I'm sorry, that's not someone I'm ever going to honor. It's just not. And I think a lot of people feel that way, certainly from the response I've gotten on my posts. It was a big red flag, basically, to me, and backed me up. My history, I ended up with postpartum OCD, anxiety disorder, which is depression is more well known. But for me, it manifested in an anxiety disorder. And that was a real wake-up call for me. And I did a lot of work on that. And yes, I did take some medication, but I also did a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy, which works really well for OCD, and did the work. And I'm in a great place now, but it was a lot of work to get there. And I ended up leaving the job that I had and getting a job in mental health. My degree is in psychology, with a focus on youth and children, as well as Indigenous matters. And and I do work in the mental health field, but of course, what I do here is not associated with my workplace. So I don't talk about my work, but I have, as a volunteer, answered distress lines and crisis lines as well. So that's kind of my background. A very big interest in mental health in general. And because of not only my own mental health, but my husband, who did die because of the PTSD, I became, I'm very much an advocate and working on anti-stigma, because I see a lot of stigmatizing comments, especially, unfortunately, coming from the right. Questioning, like they will go on my posts and question my mental health just because I don't agree with them in their political opinions, which is interesting. I don't understand that, but it comes up a lot, like the words like crazy or insane, or you have no sense, or you can't, just all kinds of ableist kind of comments. And I see it on other people's posts too, and it always just takes me aback. It's like, you're just stigmatizing mental health even more, and it's already hard enough to get people to get help. It's already hard enough to get people to go see a counselor or a psychologist and talk about what's going on for them. And I do want to note that you don't need to have a diagnosed mental health condition to benefit from seeing a counselor or psychologist. There's many times in your life where it can be incredibly helpful. If you've had a loss, and I'm not just talking about death, I'm talking about any loss of jobs, loss of hope, loss of a relationship or friend. There's all kinds of losses in life, and it's a good thing to reach out and talk to somebody about those losses to help you work through them, rather than just kind of stuff them down and power on. So that's my 2 cents. And what I'm grateful for is being invited to be a host on Beaver Politics and talk about mental health. I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and I'm very excited to see what conversations we can have. And if anybody has any suggestions for topics, please do send them my way, just to my private Jana, and let me know. I've already gotten a few ideas from just talking this morning. So, and let's move on back to Dr. Angela. And I want to, do maybe a question and answer about what your thoughts are and how people who are feeling a lot of stress right now, how they can cope. Like I know for myself, I'll just answer the question myself quickly. My coping was to start posting videos on TikTok because it gave me a sense of power in having at least my voice heard. And that's not for everybody. So I'm not saying that's what you need to do. It's everybody is different, and whatever helps you is going to be different than what helps me, and that's something we have to remember, right? But I just found it very empowering.
Okay. Maybe what I'll do to start, like, listening to what everybody is saying here, and that's what my brain does. Is I'm like, how can we bring this together into something that makes sense? So I'm just going to share the perspective. So clearly we're all individuals. So I want you to think about concentric circles, or those Russian stacking dolls that all stack together. So there's you in the middle, and then you're nested in your very first socializing experience, which is family. Some of us have very positive experiences with family, and some of us do not have positive experiences with family. Mm-hmm. But you interact with family, family interacts with you. And then we move out into the larger world. That's extended family. And for most of us, that's school. And schools are weird because everyone gets lumped in together because they're all the same age, live in the same community, or their parents send them to the same school. And we're just all expected to get along. And so it's a really hard, I say that children socialize each other with sledgehammers. And it's a hard place to be. And then we move into the larger community. So the next concentric circle is the community that you grow up in. And then there's the society that we grow up in. And then there's the global sense of and worldwide sense that we grow up in. And it comes back to everyone has their own individual experience within all of these different areas. So, and then we have to know, one of my friends says, you have to know where you've come from to know where you are and know where you're going. Yeah. And it's really interesting because as little kids, like, we don't really care. We just kind of play and do our thing and then go through school, and we're very egocentric and self-centered. And then later we start to understand the bigger picture of where we're at. And it really is how the outside world influences you and how your brain and soul and heart and nervous system make sense of things. And that's where things like depression can come in, when there's been a lot of neglect, a lot of silencing, a lot of hopelessness. That's where anxiety can come in, when there's this desire to do something but not sure where to go, and we go into fight or flight. Mm-hmm. And I really see in our in the people that I work with now, looking at videos on TikTok, like listening to the news, we are in this collective fight, flight, freeze nervous system pattern. And when fear is at the base of it, that's where anger comes in. Like, anger comes in to protect the fear. Mm-hmm. And if we go underneath the fear, there's grief and loss and existential distress of, am I going to survive this? And we're faced that politically right now. We're facing that with all the illnesses that are being unleashed in the world right now. We're being faced with that economically. Is there going to be enough to have a roof over our heads and food on the table? We're also being faced with ableism and disability right now. And someone at the beginning had put in the post, like, we're all temporarily able-bodied until we're not. Yeah. And so what's happened is everything that we thought we knew is absolutely flipped on its head. And then, I have such deep respect for like the indigenous ways of being, and the fact that we are in the time of truth and reconciliation where the truth needs to come out and we need to face it and not be dismissive about what our ancestors have done. This is the time to make things right. And so to bring it all back to mental health, well-being, we need to face what's happened and seek to be in right relationship with ourselves, with the land, with our indigenous peoples as treaty partners, and not take things for granted. And I think we're in that fear place because, recognizing we took all this for granted. And now life and government and world powers have just flipped everything on its head, and we're in this state of fear. And then add social media, and add isolation in the past few years because of COVID mandates. People have become really snappy, mean, hiding behind names that aren't real. And I'm not criticizing that, because some of us need to stay safe. And I have no problem putting my real name out there because this is just who I am and my values. And we do have to it is a time to sit back and reflect on our values and how we're going to effectively manage grief. That everything's been flipped on its head. We cannot take anything for granted anymore. And how we're going to start preparing ourselves for this uncertain future. And I can't remember who brought it up. I think it was Smarshy, but about we can't take our trees for granted. We can't take our water for granted. We need to come back to, as human beings, we need water to live. We need air to breathe. We need a relationship with the trees and with nature to survive as human beings. And this is where we've taken so many things for granted. I think about I also work a lot with nutrition, and I think about the connection between mental health and well-being and nutrition. And so much of our food isn't even real food anymore. So there's so many things to think about. And if we keep ourselves in this fight or flight, then we're not going to have a chance to make things different and get into right relationship. The last few years, I was really involved on Twitter, and I thought I was making a difference by making all my little comments. And then I thought, you know what? I'm keeping myself in a state of distress.
Yeah.
So I've deleted everything. I'm still involved here because I do feel like when I have something to say, this is a platform that I can share a voice. Same with YouTube. Same with writing. Like if you Google some of the stuff I've done, I've written some opinion editorials, across Alberta, and this is where, for me, like Jana, you talked about where you feel you have a voice. So for me, I feel like I have a responsibility, and some white privilege, educated privilege, to have an educated opinion and pull together some pieces to help people look at the issues differently. So that's what I try to do. And in all of this too, there's this critical aspect of having a voice and engaging in social justice. We get this derogatory, I've been called a derogatory comment of being a social justice warrior, and I'm like, hell yeah. That's what we got to do. And we have to remember that Indigenous people around the world have been talking about this for decades and
Mhm.
centuries. And why has it been shut down so badly? And that's what's causing so much trauma. I see there's a question here about new definition of fawn. I don't really know if there's a new definition of fawn, but with fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. So fight clearly is fighting out with words and actions. Freezing is stepping back and being so overwhelmed you don't know what to do, like a deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
Fight, flight, and then flight, of course, is running away, trying to get away from everything. And fawn, that's actually been my trauma response. Is oh, if I can please everybody and keep everybody else happy and appease the powers that be, be politically correct, so not to offend anybody, then I'll be safe. And so to me, that's what I look for, is this, how much appeasement is there of people who will never be pleased.
Yeah.
And that's where we've got to step back and say, okay, I'm not here to please everybody. I'm here to speak my truth, but is it coming from a place of fear and anger? And I'm going to add white privilege or white supremacy or holier than thou sanctimoniousness? Or am I really sitting back and saying, holy cow, where is this coming from? And how can I be a better person for myself, for my family, and in community?
Awesome.
So I hope that, like, the idea of nesting things and going in and out is helpful. And the other thing too is sometimes we have to just step back, take a break from it all. And I'm not saying, go on your trip to Hawaii or Mexico. I'm saying step back and go inside and ask, what do I need to shift and be kinder to myself, to be more honest with where things are at, and seek the community and help that I need.
Yeah.
I think the self-compassion is really important. And it's something a lot of people, I probably do a show on it at some point on its own, is just having that grace for yourself when you've, wherever you are, if you've made a mistake or something, don't necessarily, you don't have to beat yourself up. Learn from it and be compassionate, just like you would forgive a friend if they made a mistake. We tend to tell other people, oh, go easy on yourself, it was just a mistake, but we beat ourselves up about stuff.
Yeah. Well, and so hope for, I can't remember your name, Hope for Positivity, but Hope just brought up radical acceptance. So yes, radical acceptance and commitment to living your values and making the changes that need to be made. We can sit and, like, acceptance is important. It absolutely is. But the second part is the commitment to values and change, right?
Exactly.
Just for example, there's a lot of talk about narcissists lately, in our world. And so there can be acceptance of, the narcissist in your life, or the narcissist who's running a country. You know who I'm talking about, or who's running a province, you know who I'm talking about. There's acceptance, and then there's commitment to, yes, I accept this, and I'm going to live my values, and I'm going to accept that I cannot change them. I cannot change the people in my life. Let it be.
Yeah.
And commit to living in your values, to exploring yourself, to exploring your history, to exploring your ancestors' history, and coming home to what is true and what is right and what is good. And it may not be what you think it is.
Yeah. Right.
Sit in that discomfort that things are changing.
Okay, go ahead, Smarshy. You're next.
I was
And then
we were talking about We don't listen to Indigenous people telling us about climate change because we just shrug it off and, you know, in from a perspective of an Indigenous person, I was in a live and they were talking about why aren't you waking up? Why aren't you doing this? Da, 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 da. What can we do to change climate change? I'm like, I have already asked you or told you guys, I know what we need to do. And they're like, well, what do we need to do? I said, if I tell you that, it's going to start an argument. So I'd rather not. Well, we want to know. I said, okay, land back. They're like, well, what does that mean? You want to kick us out of my house?
No.
Why is it every freaking time I see that or I say that, people automatically go to the assumption that I want them out of their house and out of the country? That's
No,
not what land back means.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Smarshy, I, in my own seeking to decolonize and face um, the white privilege and white supremacy of my ancestors, I think a lot about that, and you're exactly right in that instead of looking at the holistic approach to what the 94 calls to action in truth and reconciliation and the 231 calls to justice are, people, and some people aren't going to want to hear this, but oh well, I'm going to say it anyway. White settlers jump to the fear. This is my perspective. White settlers jump to the fear of land back means Indigenous are going to do to them what our white ancestors did to the Indigenous.
Right.
That's a good point.
It is such a lie, but it is a lie that they have believed out of fear and grabbing land and territorialism and trying to survive. And it's a lie that we all need to face and
Oh,
let go of so that we can be good treaty partners.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
it is the foundation of creating what we need for the next 7 generations. And it fits so, it's what we have to do moving forward. And
And
it's,
that's the
it's,
thing.
yeah,
It's not even that I want white, and I have been accused personally by these people on here. Oh, you're okay with displacement of white people. When did I say that? Someone said that, and I laughed because I have trauma,
Yeah.
right? We were talking about land back.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'm going to laugh in uncomfortable situations because I've got trauma.
It's a
It
normal
is,
reaction for some people. Absolutely.
and oh my God, Hosan needs to be gone. He is
Okay.
doing nothing but spreading misinformation and being, and next thing you know, he's going to become a racist piece of trash. I,
I'm just gonna address, sorry, Smarshy, just gonna address the comment about virtue signaling by white apologists. I have a response for you on that. It is sincere authenticity in facing things to be a good treaty partner. So this is not virtue signaling. This is honest reality of trying to create some change. So we can just stop that garbage and stop the critique of something that is authentic. I suggest for you reading the book White Supremacy and Me by Layla F. Said. There's also the book Hospicine Modernity. So also reading the 94 Truth and Reconciliation and the 231 Calls to Justice before anyone else tries to critique this. So
right.
enough already. As a treaty partner, I'm doing my best here to move forward.
Yeah. And I think
And I
all,
appreciate you. I
yeah.
appreciate all of you. It's just I'm tired of being blamed for asking for land back. How does one get over that?
Yeah.
I don't
You
think we can
know,
get over it really, but yeah, that's so frustrating that we have to do that. Oh, a dinosaur, we're cool. It's so frustrating that you have to go through that and have to defend just an opinion, which is you're in the right, in my opinion anyway. Like we never had a right to take this land, and we have to do everything we can, and we're never going to make up for what we did. People died, children died in residential schools. We're never going to make that up. There's no way to make it up, but it doesn't mean we don't keep trying and keep working on it and do better, you know?
And Smarshy, I'm so sorry that you're blamed for that. And it is staying with your community that knows the truth, and know that more and more people, more and more allies are stepping forward and saying, yes, this is right, and we do want to create the change that needs to happen. And it
It's
really
non-binary.
truly is going to benefit all. And you know what? There's the Blackfoot hierarchy of needs, which was, a culturally appropriated by Maslow.
Oh, didn't know that.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Yeah, not
Yeah,
his. Culturally appropriated
Not,
from the Blackfoot. Hmm.
yeah,
But
not
it is.
surprising.
It's about land and safety and people, and we have to keep coming back to that. And we are on that momentum of more and more people understanding the need for that, and advocating for the truth and reconciliation that needs to happen. And it's just horrible that you're the target of racism and anger about that. And I hope you're able to step into community and just know that you're right. And it's now us allies' job to step up and say, okay, shut up, let's do the rest.
I wouldn't say I do it because I'm right. I do it to educate people who are not well versed on the land situation. Because
Yeah,
for years growing up in my family, we didn't know our culture. We didn't know anything about it. I am still teaching my dad at 68 what land bank means. He goes,
yeah,
well, what does that mean for your mom? She still gets to keep her house. Just means we have stewardship to the land.
exactly.
And my brother and my nieces, they asked me what's on my shirt. I was wearing my Every Child Matters. I said, this is a shirt for our people. And they're looking at me, and my brother's like, are you going to explain this? I said, do you want to explain this to your daughters, or do you want me? Because I can do it as nice as possible, or I can give them the actual truth. And I did it in a way so I explained to them what it was to have land back and to the Every Child Matters. And, I did it in a friendly way, a kid friendly way. But even my nieces understood this. And some middle-aged people, even my age, they're like, oh, you want to take land back for everyone else, for yourself. I'm like, that's not what I'm doing.
The indigenous never
I'm,
wanted to own the land. You're
you
stewards of
can't,
it.
that's the thing. The thing is, you can't own the land. We didn't own the land before. We don't own the land now. Ownership of land is a colonization term. That's
Mm-hmm.
what it is, strictly and truthfully and honestly. If that hurts your feelings, I'm sorry. I don't know how to deal with people and my mental health going forward with this, because it's exhausting to have to keep explaining myself over and my mental health is gone. I don't know how I can get back from that. Is there any way to deal with that, or just kind of go through it?
Come to
One of the
ceremony. You need to come to ceremony and define your boundaries and stick to them.
Yeah,
Where's the ceremony closest to me? Because I'm
So,
willing to go.
because you're down south, right? So, I encourage you to, well, I'll DM you and I'll help you
Yeah,
find a
we'll
place
talk
to
about,
come for
yeah,
ceremony.
that's
we'll
a good idea.
definitely talk about that.
Having a
Oh,
connection to sweats and all of that culturally.
yeah.
But,
and
to be
you
fair,
know
I
what
am a
else?
landowner.
And you know what else I do? Um, because as individuals, it can be really, really, really hard to, just like keep going and going and going, and put the record on repeat, saying the same things. So there is Native Calgarian podcast
Mm-hmm.
who has all of this information, that you can just refer to. So you can take the heat off yourself and just say, people, follow Native Calgarian podcast. All the information is there. Like it's this excellent resource, and then it
Oh, yeah.
takes the pressure off you to keep repeating yourself, because Michelle's done amazing podcasts and everything is right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, for the last
Amazing.
several years.
And
Yeah,
adding
she's
this,
amazing.
I was going to say, sometimes in comments, I will just put a link to a video I've already done on the topic because I get so tired of saying the same thing over and over and over again. Um,
Yeah.
I've done that with, like, say, the whole trans in bathrooms or children getting surgeries and all this kind of BS around trans people because they're being targeted too. And I just go back to my post, copy the link, and just plop it in. Like, follow if you want to hear my opinion on this. And at least it takes a little, like, I don't know if they actually do, but anyone reading the comment can also follow that and see. Does that make sense? I don't know how many people actually bother watching the videos, but that's what I often do.
Yeah, you can
I
DM
do
them,
the
but
same.
the links don't work in TikTok for some and chat for some
Yeah, you
reason.
have to copy and paste. Like, you have to just do a copy from the link and then just paste it in a browser. And so I'll just tell people copy paste this link and follow, and that's my answer.
Yeah. And that's what I do too. Like same with the op-eds and educational videos and stuff that I've done. I'll just be like, go here.
Yeah.
And then I call it standing on the shoulders of giants. If I mean, when there are people that know way more things than I do, then I refer people to them. Like that's why Native Calgarian podcast, I'm like, why aren't you listening to these? And Michelle's called me out too. She's like, why aren't you posting more about this? Why aren't you sharing this with your people? And I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Mhm.
You're absolutely right. And same with with politics. She knows way more than I do. And so that's who I look to. There's also a podcaster on here, or um, uh, she is Jennifer in Indige Politico. So much to say. So yeah, I call it standing on the shoulders of giants and turning to the people that know way more than I do about certain topics and referring people there. And that's what we have to do now is not be in an echo chamber where we're staying with the same people all the time, but being open to different views, but also having the community that supports you
Mhm.
and learn from and like be grounded with. So yeah, Treaty Six Birder about going to ceremony, absolutely going to ceremony and creating your own ceremonies in your home. Maybe it's lighting a candle, and if you've been gifted the teachings on smudge, then smudge or light some incense and spend some time with yourself. I'm looking forward to spring when I can sit outside in the morning in the sun with my cup of tea. Like it's
Mhm.
all about bringing back to rituals for yourself, for your family, in your community that make sense to you
Yeah.
and fills you up. It's not about filling your cup so you can spill it all over and give it to others. It's about really filling up with truth and goodness that sustains you. And know that we're not meant to be the same all the time. Like we're meant to grow and change.
Mhm. Absolutely. And
And
and rolling, like, going through that change and just allowing yourself to change your opinions on things, change your feelings. Like, it's okay. We all grow. When we never stop learning. Like, people would say, "Oh, I'm too old for." No, you're never too old to learn.
yeah, well, and changing our behaviors too. Like
Mhm.
I love this movement lately, like in the last week, about buy Canadian and
Mhm.
buy local. And I've been doing that for years. Like when farmers markets come out, I buy local. I look for local. I look for indigenous companies to buy from. Buy Canadian. Minimize things. Like we don't need all this stuff. That's another part of well-being too, is having gratitude for what you have
Yeah.
and saying, do I actually need, are you a slave to your stuff instead of really taking care of yourself
Mhm.
and your community?
And I think sometimes, just bouncing off of that, we try to fill our cup with stuff
Yeah.
instead of looking inside and seeing. I'm absolutely guilty of this. We buy to kind of get a bit of a, I don't want to use the word high, but an endorphin rush from it. right? Because, you go on Amazon, you're like, boom, instant gratification. And we live with a lot of instant gratification, and consumerism is a way of coping with emotional issues that we're trying to stuff deep down instead of facing. At least that's me.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people do that.
Well, and we've got these crutches that we've learned to use. And when, when that gets taken away, who are you at the end of the day?
Mm-hmm.
Like, who who are you without your stuff? Like, literally close your eyes. Everything's gone. So who are you inside yourself? And are you in right relationship with yourself, with the land that you stand on,
Yeah.
and and creation? Like, is there gratitude there?
Exactly. And I think when we have so much, we're not necessarily grateful anymore because we just keep focusing on more, 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 more. And we're never happy. It's never enough. Right. And we're in a society that keeps telling us that we need more to be better. We need that shiny new car. We need the new house, not, the one that we're living in now. We need the shiny, expensive designer handbags, and et cetera, et cetera. And advertising is so powerful to kind of suck us in. Like, I know, certainly myself on Facebook, and I don't do Facebook right now because of Zuckerberg, but Facebook is just full of like targeted ads. Like, they know your history. You look something up on your phone, like say a table at IKEA, and the next thing you know, you go to Facebook and they're advertising that table. Like, it's
Oh,
creepy how
it
good they are.
Yeah, it was really shocking to me one day when, like, I don't usually have my cell phone in my office, but I had it in here one day, and a client and I had a discussion, and she was telling me how she was improving her iron by using this thing called an iron fish.
Yeah.
And when I looked at my cell phone later, there were iron fish ads, and it was simply because my phone was in my office. Um, and I'm gonna just go back to what you said about Facebook. So I quit posting on Facebook like ages ago. I was still using Instagram, still using Twitter. And then I realized, you know what? We're in this lovely space right now of getting rid of the social media that doesn't matter. And I think we're going to be better human beings for it, because it will force us to communicate with people face to face again, get off of this false positivity meme garbage
Big one.
and positive psychology garbage that we're exposed to, and all of this fakeness that makes us feel miserable about our own lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, going back to my grandparents, I remember, once a year at Christmas, my grandpa would bring out the overhead slideshow about their holidays from the year, and that was it. And now we're exposed continually to so much stuff. We're not, our brains aren't meant to be exposed to this much information, and I'm going to say disinformation, and advertisements and false positivity. We're not meant for this.
Yeah.
We're not meant for it.
And it's not healthy.
And I'm here today to share, information and to be a part of what you're doing. But most of the time, my phone is off and I'm engaged with life.
That's awesome. I've got to work more on that myself. Like, I find Facebook, I'm glad to be off of it right now, because and same thing with Instagram and all of these, you see people posting about how perfect they are and how perfect their life is and how perfect their kids are and how perfect their dinner is. And it's all of this. And people compare themselves to that. Like, when, they look at their posts of their gourmet meal and their perfect kids, and you're only seeing a part, like a tiny piece of what somebody wants to share, not the bigger reality. Because a lot of people don't post about their troubles and their challenges and their mental health, or, et cetera, et cetera. So you're only seeing a snapshot of their vacation, right? But you're not seeing their everyday life. And we need to remember that just because people are only posting the positive doesn't mean that they're not struggling. They're just choosing not to share those struggles.
Yeah,
But it can
exactly.
be really hard on people who see that and don't, consider the fact that their lives are not perfect. Maybe they could afford that fancy vacation, but you don't know that it's not a debt that they're incurring, right? That now they've got to pay off, et cetera, et cetera. Or that they work and make, so much money, but they're stressed to the hills and over mortgaged because they have to have the fancy house to look, successful, et cetera. So they're house poor.
And not only that, but I know of families that are exteriorly house poor in having the house,
Mm-hmm.
but not having any furniture in the house. Like the children don't have a bed. They, they there's so yes, they've got the wall, the roof over their head that looks beautiful, but nothing, nothing inside. The other thing I think of are all these all the freaking grass, like that people then buy a lawnmower and have to keep an inch tall. Like we got rid of our grass ages ago and have an eco yard and a garden.
Yeah.
Like that's part of it too, is really asking ourselves the question, what is this all about? What am I doing this for?
Yeah.
And the more we can work to connect with what's real, like one of my neighbors, I just love them. They ripped up their entire lawn, like ripped up their entire yard and planted potatoes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
I want to do something
This-
like that in my front yard because I don't need it. Like it's just grass I have to mow. So I want to do like maybe an herb garden or I have a big garden in the back, but just something, even just a rock garden with some perennials,
Well,
Just,
come on over, make a trip to Calgary when you can. Come on over and get perennials because our yard is bursting and I am so happy to share because that's what it's about, right? Like it, and that's what it should be. That's what I think part of well-being is going to return to is we need to go back to sharing and bartering, like not necessarily bartering in the, how can I talk you down and get a cheaper deal, but how can we trade so that it's mutually respectful and mutually beneficial? Like that's part of well-being.
yeah. And I'm just going to do a shameless plug. Tap, tap, tap the screen, please, because it helps get this live out to more people and more people may come in. We've still got about 45 minutes. So share the live and please gift the panel. And if you're interested in being on the panel, I have a couple of spots. If you haven't been up yet and you want to come chat, come on up. Just hit the guests button on the bottom and request up. Okay. So
there's a great comment. So how can the disabled at home be part of that? And that is an excellent and important question. In how can there be more community? And I do think this is where like having some connection with social media is a place for the disabled at home to create and be a part of a sense of community. But you're right, it is about opening up to being better neighbors. And how can we check in with each other? Like I know at the beginning of, pandemic mandates is there was a lot of checking in with neighbors. And then people became so isolated and exhausted and apathetic. And we need to start return to that being friendly with your neighbors, being friendly with the people that you see in your community. That is a really, really important question and really something that we need to consider, and that it's about the importance of including everyone in community and leaving no one behind.
And it's so like with people with disabilities, it's so good that we have these kind of social technology to allow us to connect a little bit outside of being in person, because we can connect to people all across the world, Canada, our areas, etc. So it can be helpful, but it can be a detriment at the same time, because those inhuman connections are still important to have too, those in-person connections. So one doesn't necessarily completely take the place of another, right? It's good to have both.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, social media is a tool
Mhm.
for connection, but it's not the end all be all for sure. I even talked with my with my doctor, and I said, what about a return to doing house calls?
Mhm.
Like, what if our family doctors returned to doing house calls for people, so there was more interpersonal connection. There wasn't this huge drive and paying for parking and all of these things. Um, yeah, like these are things that we really have to start thinking about.
Mhm.
I recognize my battery's dying, which
Okay.
is a super fun thing. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop off, go get my charger. Um, so
Yeah.
I'll just pop off for a minute.
Just pop off. Yeah, that's okay. Just request back up. Okay. So, oh, you can just stay up too and just turn your camera and mic off and just come back. Awesome. So this is a really great conversation we're having here. And I've got some really great ideas for other shows. So if anybody has any ideas, you can either send them to Beaver Politics or you can go to my profile, just Jana, Jana. It's got a picture of moose in it, and just send me a private message if you have any ideas on mental health related shows that we could do in the future. And as always, please tap, tap, tap the screen because that helps get this live out to other people. It helps advertise it. And please do gift the panel if you can. It's just great for them to just get the appreciation. They're doing a lot of mental work being here. And we do appreciate them all for coming. And I'll be doing the show every Saturday, same time, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, which is 2 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. And I'm
Jen,
going to, yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I was done.
I just wanted to say thank you for getting together with Beaver Politics and giving people this platform to have a safe space. I've noticed on comments there were a couple of people, and I just want to mention this, a couple of people who are making comments about Trump and this and that, and I've responded
Mhm.
to them by saying, this is not the platform for that. This is a safe space. So I've been kind of watching that. But yeah, just thank you to you guys for doing this because I think it's really important. And I also want to mention to everybody here so far that so far all the TikToks that I've been watching, there are people that have the Canadian flag at the end of their names
Mhm.
that I've heard they're probably Americans pretending to be Canadians because then they're always Trump, 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 PP,
Yeah.
PP, PP. And so they're more than likely not Canadians. They're more than likely Americans that are pretending and just to give everybody a hard time. So
Yeah,
if you see
there are
comments
some.
like that, I just want to say I used to get quite annoyed at them and worked up. But since reading that, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to ignore them and just ask them to be kind, and then that's it. So if anybody comes up like that, just be aware that they may not be Canadian.
Yeah, I always check people's profiles before I friend just to make sure that they're actually Canadian, either not political or not going to be toxic to my mental health, if that makes sense. Uh,
Yes,
Before I
absolutely.
friend. Yeah. Yeah, before I follow anyway. Because there's more than enough negativity out there right
Oh,
now.
yes.
And
Yeah,
yeah, it's
and now people need a safe space. One of the things I did want to mention was Dr. Angela, you know what? I think it would be an amazing thing if doctors could make house calls because there are a lot of people that are unable to get out, don't have rides, don't have people to take them. So that's something that we would like. I'd for sure pursue. There's a lot of people too. We need to, like, mental health is an important thing, but also one thing that's also affecting people's mental health, and I know this for a fact for myself, was when they need surgeries and they need help like that, and they're not able to get them because of all the cutbacks. That does affect mental health.
absolutely.
Largely, I waited 10 months for hip replacement surgery, and I was very fortunate that I was able to do that. But I was on a forum with hip replacement support groups, and there were people in the US, and my heart went out to them. My heart just broke. An elderly lady she asked the people in the group for any tips on pain management for long term because she was never going to be able to get the surgery she required because she was a senior and did not and could not afford health care. And that just broke my heart. So we need to, right, help with like, and it's a mental health issue too when you have a physical ailment. So we all, I think we all, being here, we're doing our part, fighting for, I'm advocating for people that can't advocate for themselves, um, etc. But I don't care who you are, what color you are, anything like that. We're all human and we're all here for each other. And I just loved this jumping on the Canadian follow train. It's amazing. And that just shows me that, you know what, we are supporting one another and we have each other's backs. And that's amazing. So,
Yeah, and I want to give Starla a chance to talk because we've got two new people on
yes,
the panel. Starla.
sorry.
No, that's
Hi.
okay.
Um,
Starla.
yeah, interesting enough, I'm just recovering from an appendicitis removal, appendectomy. But previously I used to work with seniors pre-COVID as their activity coordinator, and then I was working part-time at a shelter in Pincher Creek. So I'm in southern Alberta, and during the time of COVID, I went full-time at the women's shelter, did a lot of mental health education to help support the women there. Myself, my mom had, and family, my brother and I had to flee because my dad had domestic violence issues, mainly brought on by alcohol. So I know what I lived it, and it's hard. And it was hard supporting the people in that. But then you see the political interference happen. For Dr. Esther Tailfeathers was trying to hire Dina Henshaw, and they don't know if it was AHS or a political factor that came in and said, no, you cannot hire that doctor. So then Esther Tailfeathers, who was trying to create an Indigenous strategy to help her people with addictions, trauma, mental health, could not go forward with that. So it's just heartbreaking that this political environment that we're in is not here for people. It's not working for people. It's, and as we see, she's fired the boards after boards of AHS, and
5 times she's fired the CEO. 2 times she's fired the whole board.
yeah, she's compromising health. The people that are paying their taxes and those people that are elected are not doing their mandate. They're not doing their job. So that's where we have to, and I don't care what your political environment is, you have to start looking at the issues, getting educated, and getting that knowledge, and not just sweeping it under the fridge with all the other dirt. Because that's what I find. And I'm in very blue country here in Pincher Creek,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, it's hard. It's a hard demographic to live. I lost friends during the convoy and COVID, and it's sad that people listened to the disinformation than coordinating and talking to people. And it was hard. I went through a broken foot, a foot surgery, and now I've had an appendectomy in the last 5 years. So I've seen the healthcare system. I'm lucky that we do have good professionals, but it's hard for those professionals to work within that type of an environment as well. So, yeah,
And
still working on my mental health, and we go biking, hiking, and get out to nature. I've got a cat and a dog, and I do Reiki and yoga, and I do a bit of painting. So I'd like to start getting people socializing with paint nights and whatnot in my community. So I'm also an executive director at the Heritage Acres Farm Museum down here. So I'm very busy, but right now I'm laid up and listening to a lot of TikTok and stuff. So, but thankful for the healthcare system that was there. And they did a great job once they found out what was going on for me. And the surgery was at 1 o'clock on Thursday, so it's really fresh.
Absolutely.
And, yeah, so But I've always been a person that has been on the left. I've cared about people. Even during COVID, it was like my friends came running to me, "Are you going to get the jab?" And I'm like, I've worked with seniors for the last 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get my vaccination for my flu shot to protect them and so that I can work and be there for that service to my seniors, because I was their activity coordinator and they ended up doing nothing, unfortunately, during COVID. So that's why I extended the handout to the shelter. They were way more busy and needed the supports at that time. And it enabled me to move from where we raised our children in Lethbridge back to my hometown of Pincher Creek.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my story. And thank you guys all for being here and supporting and talking about mental health for people, because it's
Thank
a great
you for coming, Stella.
Yeah.
Oh, and we lost Sean. I was going to ask him next. But Dr. Angela, you had a question in the comments you were going to address, I think.
I was just responding to another one here. Yeah, so Perry just asked, do you think some people with mental illness self-medicate by being hateful? Yeah, it's so much easier to blame somebody else than it is to take accountability and take responsibility, especially when a person's been challenged. You know, like for example, as someone in my life I set up a boundary with, and they all of a sudden got really angry and are like, well, what's wrong with you? Like, why aren't you doing what you used to be doing? Like just really angry instead of recognizing why I set up the boundary. And I think that's what's happening. And I'm, clearly like can't diagnose people with anger, everybody with anger with, mental illness, but it can become a habit of blaming everybody else or blaming the system or blaming Trudeau instead of taking a close look at what am I doing to contribute and where can I take responsibility? And that's where part of the misinformation and disinformation comes in. If people don't have transparent and truthful facts and information, then there can be this confusion and not knowing what to do. And then it's easier to blame somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, and there are, defense mechanisms that people have in blaming others and hating others and questioning others and not understanding why we have to do things in a new way, not understanding when new policies come out, not understanding, like even the bare bones basic things of why we need to do land acknowledgements and why land acknowledgements are important. It's just, oh, why do we have to do that? When, it's like, no, this is the education around why this is important, right?
Exactly.
So people need transparent facts and information, but we have to face there's still always going to be people who don't want to change, want to blame everybody else. I think about, living in small town rural Alberta as a kid, 10 o'clock every morning, there were the old white boomers sitting in the coffee shop, bitching about everybody in politics.
Yep.
And it's like we have to shut up and stop doing that and get out and do something, right? So I'm looking forward to spring and summer when there are going to be protect the water protests.
Yes.
And standing at the rivers where coal mining is going to impact, standing together, protecting the water. We need to do these foundational things together instead of sitting back with hate. There's new liberal leadership coming up. So instead of sitting back hating on things, get involved.
Exactly.
Use your voice to make a difference. And that's where some of this self-empowerment and feeling better about things is going to come forward.
Exactly.
When we use our voice and take action rather than sitting back, with the sipping the coffee and complaining about everything. So it's important to be educated and educate yourself, and then take the action, whether it's with your voice or standing together.
Yeah, and there's so many ways you can get involved. It's not necessarily like I'm doing this online, but you can join the Liberal Party and volunteer to go door knocking, or there's probably so many different things that you can do to help out the campaign, or NDP if that's your whatever your party is on the left, just volunteer.
And I get involved wherever I can. Like there was I can't vote in Lethbridge, but I helped out with the Rob Miyashiro campaign because I can make phone calls.
Yeah.
And even if you have an hour, do it. Even if you have 2 hours, do it. Like it's about educating and sharing the information so that you can have some sense of empowerment. And Treaty Six Birder said, you can't change everybody's mind, and some people don't want to learn, and that is true. I do not waste my time trying to convince people of anything who don't have ears to listen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, those are the people that I say, educate yourself. Here's some resources, and that's that. I don't waste my life energy with someone who is hateful and not going to listen anyway. There's better things to do, right? So that's what we need to move forward with. There's another question. Go ahead.
I was going to say, find the place where you can help. Like if it's volunteering for Liberal, but volunteering in general is awesome, and you get a lot from doing that. Whether it's if you're worried about food insecurity, volunteer at your local food bank. There's a lot of things that you can do there. And I just wanted to give Addicted here a chance to see if they have a question or anything they want to ask, because they just came up on the panel.
Hi, I'm Ro. I'm
Hi.
from Lethbridge. I'm 48 and ABC.
Yeah. Anything but conservative. Absolutely. Yep. Did you have a question or something you wanted to add for Dr. Angela?
I'd like to ask Dr. Angela, can you talk on how, I don't know how to put this politely, I'm kind of overtired, how women's issues are not researched the same as men's, so when a doctor talks with us, talks with me, I'll own it, talks with me as a woman, what a woman is recommended for their life situation. I'll use me as an example. I'm disabled at home, agoraphobic, will not be the same as an able-bodied other person. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That, like, honest, I think about that a lot too. Absolutely. Having been gaslit and traumatized in our Western medical system myself, and in the world of psychology as well. It really comes back to the traditionally patriarchal nature of education and medicine. And it's only been up until recently where women's bodies have started to be studied. And that really is the foundation of it, is that medical textbooks and medical education has been based on male bodies with the assumption that women's bodies are the same. And also the horrific assumption, and I honestly blame the early 20th century introduction of psychosomatic medicine, where women especially were blamed for hysteria and making up symptoms. That also goes along with Freud in the world of psychology and psychiatry, saying that, women can't possibly be making up incest from their father. Like they have to be making up incest from their fathers for attention and not being believed.
Yeah.
And it also speaks to the fact that there is so much unknown in medicine, and with symptomology and lack of testing, that they simply don't know and try to throw things at it. Like, I'll give an example. So I have long COVID. I have what I believe, and my neurologist believes, is small fiber neuropathy in my hands and feet. My hands and feet are continually tingling and numb. It's horrible first thing in the morning. But the neurologist is like, well, I believe you, but if we test it, it's going to be really painful and we don't really have a treatment for it. And yet, a year ago, I had another neurologist laugh at me and mock me, saying that it must be psychological that I'm making up these symptoms. And I'm like, excuse me, sir, I'm a fucking PhD psychologist. I think I know what's psychological and what's medical. I never had this before I had COVID, and now I have this, so it's clearly medical. So yeah, it's incredibly frustrating, and we have to keep advocating for women's health and advocating for women in research, and it's emerging, but it's not there yet. I believe it's Ontario. I can't remember. You can Google it. There is, and look up medical gaslighting Canada. There is some university professors that are researching medical gaslighting in Canada. And there's a survey to fill out. I believe it might even be just the next week or so that you can complete the survey. But they're coming out with how terribly women are being gaslit in the medical profession. And there's going to be calls for increased research, increased understanding, increased support, for women in healthcare. And, we're at this phase in human history where, it wasn't that long ago where women were recognized as persons.
Yeah.
So
and a lot of the research done was done primarily on men for years. Drug research, medical research, like heart. They didn't even know. Someone mentioned in the comments, and it's true. Women present differently symptoms of a heart attack than men do. But for years we didn't know that because they researched only men and heart attacks. So for us, indigestion can be a sign of a heart attack, stomach problem.
Yeah, and even like my research was on weight-related issues and eating disorders, and even going back to those stupid BMI charts, they were done on middle-aged men in England as population studies. They were not meant to be used for women, and they are not meant to be used as a measure of health. Like, weight and BMI is not a good measure of health and well-being at all.
No,
and research is showing more and more
especially
that it shouldn't even be
who are
there.
gaining
Like,
weight in menopause too, right? There's like weight gain in menopause is something I've experienced, and my doctor's like, yeah, it's obesity, and that's all he said. Didn't really help, but it's that male orientation. It's that patriarchy still in the education systems. And then women, we go through menopause. We live for another 30 years longer than men, and we are then the educators. There's only 3 mammals on this earth that go through menopause. It's a very unique thing to orcas, elephants, and human females. So
I think I just literally just yesterday read that article about that. So that's fascinating. It's so true.
The patriarchy in the States is taking away all women's rights to their own lives, literally their lives.
I know, and they're also taking away any funding for female cancers.
Yeah,
and testing.
Yeah,
and to the point where, did you guys watch the Gila cell? What's her name? Henrietta Lacks was the original. It was the very first time they kept cells alive outside the body. She had cervical cancer. They were investigating with her without permission on her cells. And Oprah actually did a television movie on the story of Henrietta Lacks. And they call it the Gila cell because if they linked it to a black lady, nobody would have used the live living human cells in the research that have developed vaccines, etc. So it's just, they hide things, they don't explain things, and now it's just going to be all covered up in the mess of the U.S. Unfortunate.
I know that a lot of people I read a lot of people in the US and especially in health and government were downloading stuff like crazy before Trump took office because they were scared that all of their work was going to just be deleted. And it is being, he is he's actively rewriting his history. And it's a scary thing. But certainly what's going on in the States with women's rights is very concerning, and that's putting it mildly. Go ahead.
And notice what you just said. He's rewriting his story.
Exactly.
What we need is the writing of her story.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the things nested in mental well-being and community well-being, is the shift from, and it goes back to what I said about, like people being afraid of the idea of land back. Oh, well, they're going to take it all from us. And there's this fear they're going to do to us what we did to them. No, it's not that. It's for everyone. But this, from patriarchy shifting to matriarchy, it's not that matriarchy, it's not that women are going to take over everything and put men down the way we have been oppressed.
No.
It's this shared caring and way of being and looking after resources and looking after children and looking after each other and making wise decisions that are not based on ownership and the way things have been. It's shifting into a better way for everybody. And I'm not lumping all women together in the same oppression, because Indigenous and BIPOC have significantly
more barriers,
greater horrific experiences of oppression and genocide, and it's horrific.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there's still this underlying way of things can be so much better for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to shift to in terms of mental and family and community well-being.
An Addicted Bear had a question, I think.
I just wanted to follow up with the medical gaslighting you had. Since I was diagnosed about 1999, 2001, and I ended up with blood clots.
Mm.
And I had a male doctor at the time, and I went to show him, and they were down my arm, they were huge, and he reacted like I was contagious. And I had just come from the ultrasound and everything, so we knew what it was.
Right.
And the way he reacted, it was like it was going to pop out of my veins and bite him. And I was like, wow. And then I couldn't lift my arm, so I couldn't shower. It was dominant hand and everything. So I phoned the office to get medication, and the staff didn't even put me on hold, and they started laughing. She's too lazy to even wash her hair. And you could hear the whole staff crack up laughing. I was so embarrassed, and
that is not okay to be making comments like that.
It was
people end up in emergency.
It was touch and go. And at the time, my mom was going through lupus diagnosis, and she needed to come get me to take me to emergency because this doctor would not listen.
Yeah.
And I don't recommend him, his wife, anybody in that family because they all had the same attitude that I was making it up.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I came from the ultrasound. There was ways to show it was on the way to my heart, like the whole 9 yards. And now I have a female doctor. And
Yeah.
you think, compassion, right? I explained the menopause stuff. And her attitude was like, we just don't have a sex life.
Wow.
I'm like,
Just dismissive.
what? It's taken me 5 years to get some kind of hormone therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just part of the natural cycle. But I can't go without a doctor because of my mental stuff.
And
So I sit there and I
Yeah.
take it.
Yeah. Penile dysfunction is part of the natural cycle too. Yet there's a pill for that.
Yep. And it's advertised now. You can get it over the counter. It's
Mm-hmm.
advertised as a Walmart thing.
Yeah.
Like, my mind's just blown. Like, the gaslighting.
Mhm.
Oh, and we talked about the healthcare for Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
When they made the centralized in Calgary,
Mm-hmm.
they took away testing for PAPs and down here. They
Yeah.
have to send them to Calgary to be tested. So if they get lost, you have to keep going back to get that retesting
Oh
of
my
the
God.
thing that goes in and clamps and takes the cells.
Yep. That's not cool. Pap smears are awful for me. Like my experience with them has never been good. So yeah, that's not great at all. But
So
you
we
have to.
really need to get the research for us because
You know, and
sorry.
it's also the research and it's also the advocacy. You know, I think of the advocacy I've had to do for myself in the past few years, having long COVID. And I'll just admit, with all the medical gaslighting and trauma I experienced, like I'll give you an example. I'm in the emergency room with my face completely covered in hives and my throat closing off. And the doctor, like I'm in anaphylaxis and a severe allergic reaction. And the doctor's like, well, your blood tests are fine. I think this is psychological.
Hmm.
So I literally had to do the research to save my own life. And now I know more than most doctors working, like, yeah, it's just shocking. But I also recognize that not everybody has the capacity to do the medical research to do that. And so people are less suffering. And you know what? Here's you've brought forward what the root of all mental health is, and it's suffering
Yeah.
in some capacity or the other, whether it's a physical illness, whether it's grief and loss, whether it's this political gaslighting that we're experiencing, economic disadvantage, cultural oppression. Like at the root of it, it's suffering. And what we need to do to combat's not the right word. What we need to do to help lift people, both ourselves and others, out of this suffering. And that's by facing the truth
Yeah.
and by facing acceptance that we're in suffering and getting the help out of suffering. It's by increasing education, by increasing knowledge. It's by increasing prevention measures so that we can reduce the suffering.
Absolutely.
And if we go, my mind can go really existential about this. But if we think of like the root of being on this human planet is this is the planet of suffering.
Yeah.
And how can we help each other out of that suffering? And I tell you, it's by not doing what we've been doing. We have to move into something different. We have to move into a matriarchal way of being, into an indigenous, authentic way of connecting with the earth. This is, or you know what? We're not going to make it.
We need to go back to the indigenous way of living.
We need to move forward to the indigenous.
Yeah, exactly. Move forward with the indigenous lens and respect their beliefs about the land and about people and about healing, because their medicine too is something that is so powerful. Their way of medicine, and including the mind and spirit, which is something, again, mental health has so much stigma, and we all go through mental health challenges at some point during our life. We may not be diagnosed with a condition, but we certainly have challenges along the way. I wanted to give Angela a chance to just ask a question. Oh, just so you guys know, we have about 5 minutes left. So I would love to go long, but I can't today because I have to bring my son to a appointment. But go ahead, Angela.
So I've suffered from depression, anxiety my whole life, and as well as claustrophobia. But the most of it feels like the loneliness right now. I feel like I'm stuck and I can't get out, and I can't even move to another chapter in my life. And it's like the stigma is like every single day I feel depressed, and I can't get out of it, and I can't even find a physician that would properly diagnose me, because I live in Ontario. We can't get psychiatrists, you can't get a psychiatrist, so you pay for it yourself.
Oh.
And so how can you get help?
And Alberta has, I can only speak to Alberta. It's such a long wait to see a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
And then they come for 10 minutes and offer you some pills. And again, I'm not saying medication is bad. I'm just saying that it's not the fix-all Band-Aid. No. And it should never be used on its own. It should be in conjunction with counseling or therapy or support groups or, et cetera, with other means to help. Because the medication, when I had my bigger OCD moments, the medication alone was helpful, but it didn't solve everything. Right? It was a lot of work and a lot of going through therapy and talking about issues and cognitive behavioral therapy and putting that work in.
And the worst part is I feel like I'm stuck. I'm not working right now. I feel that pressure. And my son is no longer living with me because he was special needs. And I'm stuck because I can't move on. And I feel like everyone else is moving on, but I'm not moving on.
Have you had an opportunity to do therapy, Angela, with anybody, or is it?
I can't. Where am I going to get it?
There are some, if you want, just send me a PM and I'll talk to you about that, because resources is something I'm good at. There are options for free or low-cost counseling online.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. And Kipper, did you want to add anything before we end the show?
Hi there. Thank you for allowing me up. What a treat to have Dr. Angela on. Mine's kind of based political and medical. With the new talks of bringing down all the borders and opening up Canada, what changes do you foresee going forward with our healthcare system? And will certain things be available from coast to coast?
Just to clarify, are you talking about if we became, quote, the 51st state, that kind of thing?
No, God, no.
Thank goodness.
No, just as they're talking about, as the PMs are working together now to bring down the borders and try to open our country up coast to coast.
Oh, you mean between provinces? Okay.
Yes, between provinces. So does anybody have an idea if that would include medical?
I don't think we can answer that right now, but I would say that one thing to do is to write your MP and say that is something that you would highly support. Is opening up. I think about, so for myself as a psychologist, I am only allowed to do my work for Albertans in my province. And with the world being open up to, more video and more online, it would be amazing to be able to do my job for anyone who chose that work across Canada, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
that's what we have to advocate for. So, but the only place we have right now is to write our MPs and say, I am all for open borders for medical professionals, for mental health professionals, because and for standardized registration, so that people can be portable across the provinces.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, for
yeah, I
sure.
think I think that's what we can advocate for. Right now, there's so many unknowns, but we can say this is what we want, and
Yeah.
then it becomes a national, federal call to start to make that happen.
See, like I used to live in Ontario and I moved to Nova Scotia. And of course, I've lost all my experts in Ontario, and I've been forgotten here in Nova Scotia because of such the lack of, right? So now I'm finding I have lupus and psoriatic arthritis, and I've been totally neglected. Um, and I'd like to be able to still connect with my old team in Ontario.
I
Like,
think part of the doctor's responsibility is if you are moving communities or provinces, they should be able to give those referrals, especially if you are reliant on healthcare, is remembering to give those referrals. When I
yes,
left Lethbridge and I only went 1 hour away, I'm like, I want a referral to a doctor in Pincher Creek because I knew the issues with our doctors.
yeah. Well,
Going forward,
my situation is so complex that I did get a referral into Churro, but and I don't know how much files had followed me, but all of a sudden, since I've come to Nova Scotia, I've been healed. I don't have lupus anymore. I don't have psoriatic arthritis anymore. So I'm not being treated properly. And I'm getting worse. I'm now going to end up in a wheelchair with lack of help. So when I first came here and I was still registered under OPEP, I still reached out to my old doctor in Kingston and asked her things, and she treated me via phone. And that was right at COVID time.
Yeah.
So it was easy for the doctors to bill accordingly over the phone. And then, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Kipper. Just to be really respectful of Jana's time here, what you're bringing up is really, really important. How our health and our mental health and the need for services is so critical, and how we're in a time of significant change that we cannot rely on the old ways of doing things. We have to create something new and better, that helps us move forward as individuals, as families, as communities, as a nation, to place well-being first, and provide what is needed. So
And
thank
to
you for
me,
bringing that up. Jana, I'm going to hand it back to you so you can
Close her up.
close it off.
Yeah, so first I want to thank you, Dr. Angela Grace, for being here. So much appreciated, and you're, of course, welcome anytime
Thank you.
to be here, because it's always great to have somebody with so much knowledge.
I try. I'm trying really hard.
You did a great job, and we all appreciate you being here. And I want to thank everybody on the panel. If you don't already, follow us, please. Follow Beaver Politics, both on YouTube, because we never know when TikTok's not going to be the safe space anymore, or at least, a space where we can talk openly. And also, there is a Discord. If you're interested in being on the Discord channel, we have a lot of good conversations there as well. Thank you to everybody who gifted the panel. We really appreciate you guys and for coming. Again, this show will be every Saturday. And please watch our other shows. We have a show every evening at 6 o'clock. So we will have more shows on Beaver Politics. I wish I could remember the names, or I had somebody here who could, because I don't have it right in front of me. I forgot to write it down. Discord is how does one describe Discord? I don't know. It is a server that you can have conversations on, and have people that you friend and groups that you friend to talk to. It's really amazing there. So if you're interested in the Discord, I believe the link is in Beaver Politics logo. So you just go to their icon, click on it, and you'll get a link to the different places you can go, including the Discord. Yeah. Oh, I've got someone asking up. I wonder if they might have some things to add. Sorry, John. We're just closing up for today, but we'll be here next week, same time, same place.
Okay,
yeah.
so in Ontario, what time would it be?
2 to 4.
4?
2 to 4. 2 p.m. we start.
Or 2 o'clock? Okay, thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you for
Bye.
being here.
Thank you.
And thanks,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Angela.
Bye.
You all have a great day, and we'll see you next week.